got a video I've wanted to do today because I find it an interesting topic. I've been thinking how that it's possible that our pastors and our churches have been inadvertently chasing us away from the Bible. They tend to make it so complex. I mean, they have to go to school for 4 years and write doctoral essays, and we've all got these big hairy books. They just fill up the library. It can be very daunting. And then when their sermons kind of jump all over the place, you feel like you got to have a master's degree in theology just to follow them along. And unfortunately, we wind up just being a bunch of little bobbing dogs going, okay, I guess so. But I think the Bible is easier than that. I was challenged to read my Bible cover to cover a few years ago, and I've been reading it every year since. And I started noticing things in the Bible that I've wanted to share with you. I think the Bible is easier than what we've been led. I think it's simple. I look back and I was brought up by my great-grandfather and my great-grandmother, and he read his Bible like 30 minutes a day. Every day. He went through it probably 20 times in his life. So, was it so complicated, or have we made it complicated? So I've got some ideas I wanted to throw your way. The first one is one that my wife had done. She brought this out for the kids. And it has the books of the Bible that look like a bookcase. I know a lot of us, we've looked at the table of contents and went, youch, look at all of those. And it seems like they're random, just kind of thrown into a big list. They remind me of the English anthologies that we used to get in high school, where you opened it up and just a bunch of stories were just staring you in the face. But if we look at this, we see that in this bookcase, you have the books of the law put together. These are the books of Moses. Next to them are all the history books put together. That's the history of the Jews, the nation of Israel. Then we have the poetry books are all put together. Well, that's interesting. Thank you for codifying that. Then you have the major prophets. Then you have the minor prophets all put together in nice little stacks. Then you look down, there are the Gospels staring you in the face. Very nice. A history book on the book of Acts. Then you have, of course, the epistles to the churches, and then the general epistles, and of course, general epistle, and then you have Revelations is after that. So you see where this is a lot easier than what we think. It's codified into certain books. There's another thing I wanted to show you, this next graph, which I found out about, and I found it very interesting, is that reading the Bible cover to cover is a lot like going to school. You learn simple to complex. I'm going to say that those first 5 books of Moses are written in very simple English, very simple Hebrew. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth was without form and void. You'll have simple words. When you go through the 5 books, you don't get a lot of adjectives or adverbs. You just get a pretty simple statement like, and Abraham and Isaac went up the hill, and Isaac said to his father. Simple words. Isaac said to his father. They read pretty simply, like a primer, like something you'd give somebody in 1st through 5th grade. When you look at the grammar and the word usage in the history books, now it's more like middle school. You've got witches and giants and fights and kings and queens and intrigue and battles and all kinds of things going on. You've got floating axe heads. You've got prophets and prophetesses and wars and some violence. It's right up there with middle school. Stuff you'd want to read. Then comes the poetry books, which is kind of like high school. That's when you're dealing with emotions, you're dealing with compassion, you're dealing with feeling things. You've got the poetry books where you're sharing feelings. You've got wisdom. Now, how do you start living this life? You've got books about, what is life? What's the meaning of life with Ecclesiastes? You've got romance with Song of Solomon. You've even got humor and some interesting things in the book of Job, kind of like why do people suffer? So you look at those books, are kind of like high school. You're thinking deeper thoughts. The prophets, both major and minor, are like being in college. Then you're getting to very deeper thoughts. Then you're digging in. Now you're dealing with wrath, justice, judgment. You're dealing with things as consequences, actions and reactions, all these things about life. And so you see that in the major and minor prophets. Then comes life with Jesus. The 4 Gospels are just life. Here we go. Then Acts and the writings of Paul is the how-to. If you look at the writings of Paul and Peter and these other epistles, they're how-to. And of course, you got a little bit of spooky there with Jude, kind of talking about angels and fallen angels. Then you get to eternity. Then you get to the Son coming back, and you get to the final judgment, and you get to the new heaven and the new earth. So you see, it's gone from simple to complex. And that's what we do every day. I mean, if you're going to become a doctor or a dentist, if you're going to even become a carpenter, you go from simple to complex. You don't just do complex. Imagine trying to be a doctor if you leapfrogged all the way around the body. How would anybody ever effectively become a doctor? If you want to be an effective Christian, you've got to spend some time going cover to cover. Leapfrogging around with your favorite devotional is going to get you nothing. We learn from our pastors to keep a finger in Exodus and put a finger in Colossians. No, everybody turn to Jude, and then it becomes dizzying after that. I mean, how do we know they're right? How do we know they're in context? So my challenge for you is to go back to the simple. Give yourself a year, or probably 13 months. Read it cover to cover for yourself. I know you're going to run into big words. Just sound them out. You know, I kind of fudged on the big words. Their places and their people's names, they're really not as important. Most of the names you'll run into, probably over 70%, are actually fairly easy to pronounce. There's even some Bibles, some of the earlier King James Bibles have phonetics where it sounds out Mahala'el, Mephibosheth, you know, these kind of things. So you can find that. But read your Bible for yourself. Go from elementary through complex and up into eternity. But that's my challenge. This book is easy to learn. I found it to be exciting. I see things that my pastor never told me. So my challenge for you is don't be daunted by a few long words. Go from cover to cover. Just take it with a cup of coffee or a cup of tea, a little bit every day, and pretty soon you'll be seeing things that you never saw before. So that's my challenge. Cover to cover.